Today, man, on our topic, Kenneth Davis, founder of Veterans for Veterans, he knows all about this topic here, and that's fully developed claims. Okay, so from
Mhm.
what I know from my novice experience is that there's a lot of different ways when you are submitting for your benefits that you can do so.
Yes, sir.
However, the fully developed claim process is one you may want to know about and want to follow. So Kenneth, get into that, man. Tell them a little bit more about what they should know on filing that fully developed claim.
Yeah, so there's multiple filings on how you can file your actual VA disability claim. However, we're primarily going to focus on the FDC claim, right? You have a standardized claim, you have appeals, and you have other ways to go ahead and file other claims. However, typically a FDC claim, what it is, it's a fully developed claim, okay? A fully developed claim. And that's all it is. Okay, we kind of want to. Sometimes we try to over. It's overcomplicated in regards to some of the verbiage and different things of that nature. The only thing that a fully developed claim is that it is a package amongst benefits with all your documentation that is present. That is it. Whether if it's medical records, whether if it's any type of documentation that is asked for, your stressor statements and different things of that nature, everything is here. You don't have anything else to submit. And unfortunately, what happens is many veterans, they actually submit a claim under a FDC program, and they're typically kicked out and kind of booted out, unfortunately, just due to the fact they do not have everything of record once they claim that they have everything of record once submission happens.
Got it, got it. So now, with that particular claims process, so obviously I know there's many different forms you can fill out. So let's say I'm a
Mhm.
veteran filing for my first claim. I've never filed before. Maybe I got out of service maybe a year ago, or maybe it's been 5 or 10 years, right? Because sometimes veterans
Mhm.
wait. But my first claim, am I able to file a fully developed claim for my first initial claim?
So yes, so a fully developed claim does not matter if you're filing an initial claim or an increase or even a supplemental claim, right? But typically, again, the fully developed claim is for an initial or increased claim. So what it is, again, like I said before, it's all relevant medical evidence or all relevant evidence, period, has been submitted to the VA. Okay, and at any point in time that they have to request anything from you, you're kind of notified of that actual removal of the program.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely.
And some of the benefits from actually being in the FDC program typically are faster processing, right? I know many veterans, have many gripes on the VA processing times. However, they're dealing with millions of veterans on a constant and consistent basis. So, with those processing times, sometimes again they've actually scaled back some of those processing times. There were times when it used to take years just to get an initial claim decided upon. Now it's on average, I would say about 135 to 145 days, give or take. Could even also be down all the way to 120. So, but with that being said, as long if you have a fully developed claim ready, typically it gets processed a little bit quicker, right? Typically, it gets processed a little quicker.
Okay, definitely, definitely. Now, what form would I need for my first steps of actually filing that fully developed claim?
One of the forms you would need is a 526EZ. That is just a basic application for disability benefits. Okay, so this form here, you'll complete the form in its entirety. But also, under if you're filing with as an FDC, fully developed claim, what happens is that you are also preparing all your information to be sent to the VA with that actual form there. Okay, that's all relevant evidence that could be provided. Okay, whether if it's your medical records, whether if it's again statements or buddy statements, whether if it's any type of records from your physician or anything that is then deemably needed to be inserted in a file sent to the VA.
Absolutely. So yeah, so the key here, I guess, is organization, right? So
Yeah.
now, and that's a really good point of a fully developed claim, right? You have to have everything fully developed. So now, how would it work if I didn't already have my medical records? Would I still be able to submit a fully developed claim, or I have time to gather all those documents? How would that process work?
So if you do not have any records or anything to submit of evidence, what happens is this is where your claim becomes a standardized claim
Mhm.
under standardized processing. This when the elongated times happen typically, right? Where the Department of Veterans Affairs are requesting information from you that they would need and like, right? So if you're submitting a form that requests, say, you hurt your knee while in service, uh, but they will particularly like to see if you've had any documentation of the need, whether it's in service, out of service, or anything of that nature. They would like to see what you have. So now they're sending out a request for information. Right, they're sending out that request for information. They're sending it typically in a notification letter, and then you would need to then send that back to the VA. But again, this creates an elongated time frame in processing, right? So we want to try to particularly give them everything that they need in one shot, right? In one shot. But ultimately, we understand that a lot of veterans travel or move when they, you lost this record, you lost that record, you lost. Again, we're trying to build up your case file for you. We want to take a look at everything for you to be able to, get everything in one good area for you, so you can go and submit your claims file.
Absolutely. No, no, that's very important that you kind of recognize that and what you said there, because it sounds like no matter how you go through the claims process, in order to get approved and to receive your benefits, it seems like it's going to have to be fully developed at some point of the process anyway. So you might as well,
Yeah,
take the onus on yourself to do that before you even submit the claim and be proactive instead of doing things retroactively once it's requested.
and that's the thing. You don't want to be reactive to the VA system, right? Being reactive creates elongated times, creates a lot more stress, creates a lot more panic, and also creates a time frame where that for the veteran, uh, not being able to connect the dots to your benefits in an efficient way creates again an impact on your family, because those benefits could have then basically minimize some of the financial burden, the medical burden, even the your education burden,
Mhm.
everything. It's a lot. It's a lot of things that you could actually be assisted with. Even again, your VA home loan burden. You won't have that VA funding fee if you're service connected. Then we can actually get you to the people that are going to be able to utilize your VA home loan to its fullest capacity, and also provide you all the education and provide you again a home for you and your family properly, which again, a lot of times, Mr. Kayvon Jones can always point you in that right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's very important to understand that point. Now, when
Mhm.
you're purchasing a home, there's a funding fee. Whether they really explain it to you or not, it's just being tacked on to the price of the home, right? So if you're buying a house for $100,000 for the sake of easy math, and it's your first time using that VA loan, 2.3% is going to be added to that home purchase. So instead of
Yes,
it
sir.
costing 100,000, now it's actually extra 2,300. Now it's 102.
Mhm.
So you definitely have to really look at that and consider that. And now, is there a certain service connection percentage needed to waive that funding fee for the veterans?
So typically it's 10%, right? 10%, that is going to waive that funding fee, that 2.3% funding fee. That 10% can ultimately get you over that, which is going to save you thousands of dollars, right? That's going to save you thousands of dollars in the home purchase, definitely here in San Diego County.
Oh,
So, and I'm not talking about 1,000, 2,000. Like, no, this is going to save you a significant amount, right? But with that being said, as well, I do want you to understand that just because you're service connected at that 10% to be able to access those windows, there's many more. There's many more that you can unlock as well.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's great. So they complete the package, they complete the form to apply. And now when
Mhm.
they're submitting the fully developed claim, where are they submitting those documentations to? Are they mailing that in to a particular address for the VA, or they doing some things online? How does that work?
So what happens is they're either one, they can fax it off to the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Claims Intake Center, which again, is in Gainesville, Wisconsin. They can either take it down to the regional office, in person. They can even mail it to their local regional office. But primarily, many veterans, what they do, they actually process it online, and then at that point, once you're able to process your claim online, again, it kind of give you a step by step to be able to fill out that entirety of the form that was discussed of the 5260Z, right? So that's something that can be utilized as.
Okay, so is that so now at what point were they would they fill out that intent to file form?
Well, you want to do that as soon as possible. Every veteran needs to fill this out as soon as possible because now that gives you an allotment of a year's time frame to submit your claim to have backdated benefits from the day you submitted your intent to file. Okay, so you have a year's time frame to go ahead and submit your claim for it to go all the way back to that date. All right, so that's a huge factor there. All right, so every veteran needs to submit an intent to file if they plan on utilizing their benefits.
Okay. And which, that's a very good point that you make. If you have a year to submit, let's say you decide and you made a New Year's resolution that in 2023 I want to go after and I want to get these benefits that I rightfully deserve, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And let's say you don't have your claim fully developed initially. It's like, hey, I don't have all my stuff right now, but you can actually put in that intent to file form as you work to gather all of that information.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. It gives the veteran the opportunity to be able to get their claim processed in a fully developed claim manner. But I mean, it's just been new guidance, right? New guidance that's happened this year, which again, this new guidance is possibly servicing the veteran community and the VA in a more efficient way. However, that FDC program that we're talking about, the prioritization has not been labeled there anymore. So it's not of priority anymore. And that's what the veterans, that all veterans need to know, that just because you are receiving, that's just because you are submitting a claim under the FDC program, which has all your relevant evidence included within your claims file. What happens is that you're no longer of a prioritization.
Got
Not
it.
saying that your claim is not being processed in a timely manner. It is specifically just saying you are not considered as an urgency to be processed. Okay. There's only a few prioritizations to have that urgency. Okay.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. So before, if you have a fully developed claim and somebody else has a regular claim, you're saying they would take those pile of fully developed claims and kind of review those first. Is what happened in the past.
Yeah, so they would do it. So basically, what it would be labeled. Once it's labeled as a fully developed claim, now with that labeling of a fully developed claim, it's kind of sent along to that person who will ultimately service that claims file, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
but with that, that's no longer happened. This guidance have recently come out back in November. Okay, so November 2022. So with this guidance being updated, we have to understand that there's no longer any type of prioritization in that. However, what does happen, what we do know it's going to happen, ultimately, if you have all your evidence and everything available to you, it's still going to be processed faster than someone who doesn't. Okay,
Absolutely.
now it's just not a priority. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, which because you're helping make their job a little easier, right? Because now they're having the raters and the different folks that are reviewing those applications. It's like, okay, this is actually ready for decisions and everything is right in front of me, so
Mhm.
that they could actually make that decision. And based on someone that didn't have a fully developed claim, they know and anticipate there's going to be a lot of back and forth of
Mhm.
discovery of conditions, and also different steps and documentation, which again, just like Kenneth stated a little earlier, it causes you to lose time. So imagine you filled out a form. Hey, I want to file my claim, and you send that in, and now you waiting for a letter from the VA just to tell you what you already know. Hey, you need your records. What conditions are you applying for, and all this different information. And they may take a month, 2, 3 months, right, to reply to you every single time to request every particular action.
For sure, and that's the problem, right? Again, obviously it's a very sophisticated, system that they have aligned, but it's also a very complex problems that we ultimately the VA ultimately deals with. So it's not necessarily a knock on their processing standards or anything of that nature, but this is just for information for the veterans. We need to understand that ideally, this is something that you want to have processed in that manner. Okay, because the prioritization specifically does not you're not under any type of urgency to be completed in that way. So now if you don't want to um, be kind of stuck in the queue, right, to be serviced, you want to make sure that you have that full case file. Mainly the prioritizations kind of fall into line of homeless veterans, right? So we always want to process the homeless veterans a little bit faster, but also as well we're also age matters. Age matters as well. 85 years or older, that would matter as well. And also having financial hardships. Those financial hardships puts a lot of veterans in a homeless status. So they want to try to process those a little bit faster as well. So with that being said, you ultimately want to make sure that that your claim is fully developed. So at least you are being able to scale back sometime.
No, absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense a lot. So, all right. So
Mhm.
now we got to the process where the veteran submitted the claim. Okay. So
Mhm,
now,
mhm.
when they're waiting for a decision on that claim, what's kind of going on, or what's the expectations of, uh, I guess, a timeline of it typically takes for a decision to be made after they submit that claim.
Typically, it all depends. It all depends. But on average, I think the VA is kind of churning claims about 125 to 135 days. That's pretty average. It could be a lot longer. It could be a lot quicker. However, ultimately, you want to expect that time frame from you submitting your claim. So, with that said, I would say make sure any information that you may have, please submit it, even if you think if it's not relevant or not, just submit it.
Absolutely. All right. So now they submitted the claim, they got a decision. Now, are they going to get that decision in the mail? Are they going to receive something on their claims portal? Or, how is that decision going to be communicated to the veteran?
Great question. That's a great question. So you're typically going to receive your decision via notification letter. All right. However, you can also see that decision be processed through your portal prior to you receiving your notification letter 9 times out of 10, because obviously technology is a lot faster than snail mail. With that decision being made, you also want to consider that a direct deposit, if you have your direct deposit information on file, could be a direct deposit initially as well. So you could receive a decision, direct deposit next day or a few days thereafter, which again it could take time, processing. So don't expect that. However, again, those are multiple ways on you receiving your notification. But first and foremost, typically it's going to be within your portal or notification letter.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, and we wanna I guess let you guys know also on just even on a basic level, because we have veterans that are everywhere in between the process, right? Maybe you just got out a year ago, maybe you've been out 20 years, right? So we're talking about the portal, and maybe you were out 20 years ago and the portal didn't exist because the internet didn't exist or something like that, right? So the portal is through the va.gov account, right? And now, how do they actually set up that account if they don't already have that account?
Well, you can go on to va.gov and attempt to log in. It has a login, and there it will be able to prompt you to set up 4 different options for security purposes, right? ID.me, login.gov, DS login, and My Healthy Vet. Once you have populated and filled out one of those applications to be able to access the va.gov portal in one of those selections of entry, whether if it's, again, id.me, login.gov, DS login, or My Healthy Vet, at that point, you'll be able to access your va.gov account. Okay. But make sure that you're ready to answer certain security questions to be able to access that.
Okay, great, great.
And the security questions are typically based upon public record and credit reporting and different things of that nature. So just make sure you know where you lived previously for the last 6 years or
Got it.
things of that nature.
Got it. So yeah, yeah. So many people probably encountered these type of security questions before when you're applying
Mhm,
for a home or buying a vehicle.
mhm,
You're accessing your credit profiles in a lot of different ways, right? They'll ask you like, "Hey, here are 3 different addresses. Which one was your address that you lived at prior?" And just making sure for verification.
mhm, mhm.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
No, that works out. Okay, so and that's going to be the first step, right? So in the fully developed claim process, you obviously want to make sure that you have that account, and then you go through all these series of steps that we just mentioned. Now, on their records, okay? So what if I'm a veteran and I do not have all of my medical records or none of those records? How would I approach that process?
So that's a little bit different, right? This, when we're talking about your medical records are very significant to that veteran. However, there's multiple steps on avenues on how you can be able to request those. Primarily, what I would always suggest most veterans do is to fill out a form that's called the SF 180, a request for military records request form. Okay, this form here is, once you primarily fill that out, I suggest you send that to the VA to request your file, on all the records that the VA has. Okay, typically they'll go ahead and send that to you. They'll send that on a disc. They'll send that on a disc to you via mail. Preliminary warning: it does take some time. Could take 4 to 6 months. Who knows? It could take even longer, but you need to get the request in to receive your information.
Absolutely.
Okay. This is why, again, here at Veterans for Veterans, we're ultimately navigating that process for you and with you, but also we're also scouring anything that you may have to still develop a list for you. Make sure that we're going out to conditions that could be able to be of service to you. Because everyone's military service is a little bit different. This is why we have a preliminary consultation to make sure that we can um, make sure we're servicing you and servicing your family.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's great. Because, as we talked about before with the PAC Act and different things like that, there's going to
Hmm,
be
hmm,
certain conditions that may be common. And even without your medical records, we may be able to start working on some of those lists for those kind of common conditions based on when you served and based on the nature of your job and different ailments that you are in fact suffering from. So now that's great, man.
sure.
That's great. That's great. So we go through the process. You determine the eligibility, gather the evidence, complete the fully developed claim package. Then
Hmm.
you go ahead and submit that, right? Wait for a decision. Now we got that decision on the va.gov account, and we look and we see it's like, hey, I had like 10 different conditions in here, right? I was expecting to
Mhm.
get 100%, and I did not get that rating that I was expecting. So
Mhm.
now what happens at that point? Obviously some of our veterans may get frustrated because it's like, dude, I went through the fully developed claim process, had all my information, had all my evidence, and they still denied some of the conditions that I know I'm suffering from. What would be a next step for that veteran once they receive that letter and may have some gripes and disappointment in that?
Well, next step there, I would definitely suggest you give a Veterans for Veterans a call, text, or email so we can be able to analyze your full case file for you to be able to make sure, one, it was a properly adjudicated properly, right? We audit each and every case that comes across our desk, so we want to make sure that you have a fair decision, right? But also what we do as well, we want to make sure that we assist you to go down throughout the process to get those benefits that's allotted to you.
Absolutely, man. That's great. That's great. So we're gonna make sure that you do that. So now, what about a veteran that hasn't went through the fully developed claim process just yet, and they're like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. Can they come and reach out to Veterans for Veterans for that initial process and like, hey, I need help on that right away. I don't want to wait to get denied.
Well, typically, again, give us a call. We want to make sure that we analyze every person's circumstance. Every veteran is a little bit different. Every veteran's case file is a little bit different. Every veteran's, again, military service is different. Everyone is treated as an individual, and we take the time to make sure that you are treated as an individual. Okay, ultimately. So, with that being said, we need to analyze what you are going through and also make sure that we're having a great conversation with our subject matter experts. Okay, once we have that conversation that is being in place, we are ultimately deemably going to make sure you get to the end of the goal of getting your benefits that you have earned.
Absolutely. Great, great. So now so I'm a veteran, I received my benefits. I got the letter, and now I guess I've been approved for the benefits. How
Mhm.
long after I get that notification letter that my claim has been approved for me to actually start receiving my compensation?
So you should receive your compensation directly thereafter on the next month. Okay. Like I said before, if you submitted your intent to file in a timely manner, you're going to one get if for any new or increased claims, you're going to get your back pay. Okay. But also, you're then going to get your next month pay on your next direct deposit or mail check or any payment compensation payment source that you may receive.
Got
Okay,
it,
so
got
you
it.
receive that
Okay.
immediately. But there's some caveats amongst that. We'll get into that another day in regards to that because everything is not black and white when we're talking about the VA, right? So we'll talk about those caveats a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah, but just generally speaking, once I get my
Mhm.
notification letter, I should expect payment for that within somewhere around a 30-day period.
Yes. So once you receive your decision, once the decision is received, give yourself about again a week's time frame or a 30-day time frame in regards to receiving your back pay and also your next month's pay as well. So at that point, you should receive that within that time frame there. I would say 3 to 4 weeks. But again, it could be much shorter, it could be much longer. But ultimately, on average, we'll see everything by then.
Got it, got it. And one last point before we close on that. Now, when I receive those benefits, will I have to worry about actually paying taxes for my service connection benefits that I receive on a monthly basis?
Great question. Great question. So, if you receive your benefits from the Department of Veterans Affairs for your disability, it is a tax free payment. Okay. Tax free payment. I repeat, tax free. Okay. So understand that is something that is, again, that is applied because it is ultimately a benefit from your exclusive benefit for your military service. All right. However, if you are a retired veteran, you can be taxed on your retirement pay, but we don't want to go down that road. We have further videos that we're going to explain that as well.
Absolutely. Great, great. So disability compensation, you're not taxed on that. And you're saying, and we'll go into it in another video, that sometimes it may get convoluted if you are receiving pension benefits as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Great, man. Great conversation here, Kenneth. Great conversation here. Anything else you want to add or kind of close? Any closing remarks here?
I just want to go ahead and let the veterans know we're here to primarily serve you guys, not only service you guys. We want to provide you information and education in any direction that we can. So if you have a basic question, please don't hesitate to comment, reach out to us. We want to service you. We want to answer those questions. If, again, at any point in time that you feel as though that you may need some assistance, we don't care if it's a little, it's a lot. Every question needs to be catered to. So please give us a call and we'll love to make sure that we service you here.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for watching this segment. We'll actually get into the real estate portion of the show, going over some different things with the types of mortgage loans, not only for veterans, but just that everyone qualifies for. And of course, veterans can utilize those as well. So, see you next time. See you on the other side. Peace.